Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. My name is Demetrius, podcast for Lions fans everywhere. Shout out to the super producer extraordinaire, Mike Ward. um, week 15 of the 2021 NFL season. The 11-1 Gridiron Heroes come in hosting the 10-3 Arizona Cardinals. Considered one of the better teams in the league, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And so what happened today is that the 11-1 Lions put together their most complete game all season. There's a couple of mistakes for sure, things we could point out and harp on, but we're not going to, because that is not what this podcast is all about. So this podcast is about optimism and positivity, and we haven't had many opportunities to be that or do that all season. So despite Jim and Greg on the Twitter feed, who already have sent me notes saying, don't be too cornbready today. And I guess cornbready is a word. I'm willing to go with it. I've been asked to not be too cornbready, despite the fact that the Lions defeated today. And I don't want to be too hyperbolic and say they dominated. But if you watch that game and you don't know the records, you don't know the teams, you don't know the Lions' history, and someone said to you, one of these teams is 10-3 and the other team is 11-1, if you're honest, and a lot of people are not, but if you're honest, you would have inverted the records. That's just reality, because one team looked better. One team looked like they were playing harder. One team looked like they were playing for something. The other team was out of sync from the start of the game. And then if I were to say to you, run down the list of missing players, I could go down the entire list, like the big list that talks about Romeo Okwara, who's been out for a while, and Trey Flowers, and Jeff Okudah's been out all season. I could talk about Melifonwu, and I could talk about Ragnow, who's been out for games and games. I could talk about Quintez Cephas. I could talk about, but I won't. I just did, though. Do the whole list. I could just say, added to that list for this week is Hawkinson with a hand, done for the year. DeAndre Swift, arguably the best player on the roster, still rocking a shoulder injury. And then Julian Okwara, who was coming on as a young guy. So the list of injured players on a team that we all agreed at the beginning of the year was average at best. And then I say to you, that team looked really good, looked dominant over a team a lot of people were calling the best team in the league 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. A team with a 10-3 record, a team that's going to go to the playoffs, a team that had everything to play for. Right. So the guys that don't ride with me are going to say Arizona didn't play well. They didn't bring their best game. That wasn't their effort. And I would say to you, so what? So what? So at the risk of being too cornbready, I will say to you that I really enjoyed watching this game, right? I will also be honest and say that even up 27-6, I wasn't comfortable, right, with 6 or 7 minutes left, because I had no reason, not this year, but missing those guys they were missing, the expectation wasn't high. And then the first drive goes almost 9 minutes, and even though it results in a field goal, I felt good about that drive. I felt good about they were making plays. I have railed on Dan Campbell. Well, not consistently, but there was a 3-week stretch, Pittsburgh tie, Cleveland, and Thanksgiving Day, where I thought play calling was atrocious. I railed on his leadership. I did not like the decision, but I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to say that I'm not apologizing. Don't get this wrong. He's gotten better. It's just simple. He's gotten better, and guys get better. Players get better when they play more. With the exception, I think, one call that I think I disagreed with, maybe two. There was a third down play, I think. Dan Campbell called a great game today. And I got to be honest and just admit it, because I gave him the business for 3 weeks. Back around Thanksgiving, I was not happy, and I gave him the business big time. So I got to say, he called a good game today. There was creativity in the play calling. There was clearly a commitment to the run. He called a good game today. I can't say that. Goff, he almost made the big mistake early. I think it was still 3-0. He almost threw the really bad interception, but Jared Goff won't just let me make up my mind, right? I want to just plant my flag and say, that's it. This guy's not our quarterback. And then he plays like he played today, which, like I said, was a really clean game. And clean meaning he didn't miss too many. I remember one big miss, and his third down play, he overthrew somebody. The near interception was a bad play, but he had, and I'm not talking about stats for the guys. Some guys are about to hit me on Twitter and tell me, oh, you're just a stat guy. I get that every week. I'm not a stat guy. I watched the game, and the way I saw him play during the game, he played well. And I've always, this year I've said, I don't know if it's fair to evaluate Jared Goff this year because I don't know if there's enough talent around him. I don't know how to evaluate him when he doesn't have a consistent running game. Well, he got really good effort today from Craig Reynolds. And it impacts the ability to run play action. He got a weapon in Josh Reynolds a few weeks ago that he didn't have, that gave him someone he's familiar with, someone he's comfortable with. And if you don't see a difference since Josh Reynolds has joined, I don't know what you were watching. And I think also to add to that is Dan Campbell's gotten better as play calling. He's gotten much better as a play caller. So I had been down on it, particularly those 3 weeks, but I can't really go in on play calling today. I think the play calling was pretty good. I think they as a team, they played relatively clean. There was a false start on Brock Wright that I think hurt a drive. And there was a pass interference later that hurt. But for the most part, they didn't beat themselves today. And that's what happens. I mean, and you can say Arizona didn't play well and try and excuse it that way if you want. That never bothers me. I believe that I can watch a game and see if the other team, in this case, the Lions defense, contributes to one team playing poorly. And I believe that's what it was. I think Aaron Glenn called a great game as a defensive coordinator. They had pressure on Kyler Murray. And even when they made some plays and moved the ball, the defense became stronger near the red zone and made the plays they had to make. Arizona didn't get their first down till well into the second quarter. That defense played well today. Actually, every facet of the game, they played pretty well today. They had scoring drives of 93 and 97. When you possess the ball for 12 and a half of 15 minutes in the first quarter, you impact the game. You don't allow the other team to get in their rhythm. They're literally on the sidelines watching you play. And I thought that was a big deal. Arizona had a chance to get a field goal when the game was 10-0. I don't know what Kingsbury was thinking. It was kind of weird, but all in all, that first drive of the second half was also huge. They came out and they gashed the Lions with runs, and the Lions tightened up and held them to a field goal. And that was the difference between 17-7 and 17-3, which at the time felt important to me. It seemed like it's a big deal that they held them to a field goal here. And I think it ultimately was. So as I'm watching the game, I was thinking about, how do I approach the podcast? I can't go and apparently be too cornbready. And I didn't really feel that way. I like it when my team wins, right? So wherever you are on the spectrum, it kept coming back. Maybe you're someone way on one side who says, I want my team to win every game. And there are people there. You can go on Facebook and see those people. I'm not going to do a social media segment today because it would be one of two things, right? The people, oh, congratulations, guys, yay. Or and I'm talking about that spectrum now. I want my team to win every week no matter what. There's people way over there. There's people way over here who are now saying, you're blowing a draft pick, you're blowing a draft pick. Don't win games, tank, you're blowing a draft pick. And while I could do my tanking thing again, I won't, because I don't want to bore you guys who actually listen consistently and have heard me talk about how tanking is not realistic, tanking is not really possible, tanking makes no sense. I'm going to touch on it a little bit, but the word that kept coming to my mind was what? Like W-H-A-T. I'm watching Jared Goff. I'm like, what? Who? I'm watching the play calling, and I'm like, what is this? And I'm watching Craig Reynolds run through gaping holes. What is happening with the offensive line? All positives. Like, what? What is this? 17-0 at halftime. What am I watching? So the word what kept coming to my mind, and I was kind of laughing to myself thinking about that whole what thing. So I thought, today we're going to do a 3-parter again, and everything is like what. So I want to touch on 3 things. What do we want? What do we want as fans like the rest of this year? Right? And this is part of that tanking conversation or wins. What's the value in wins? What do we want? And wherever you're on that spectrum, like I said, you might be way over here, which is like win every game. Anytime you play, I want you to win. You might be get the best draft position guy, or me, somewhere in the middle, which is I see value in young players getting better. If that results in a win, I'm fine with it. If you play really, really well and still lose, fine with that too. So there's place for everyone on the spectrum. But what do we want? Right. Then I want to talk about what do we have? I want to talk about this roster. Like I want to go through each position group, talk about what do we have? Because I don't know. I know how I think about it. And I'm going to be incredibly cornbready in that segment because I can't help myself, right? I like a lot of despite the losses, my issues have been much more coach and quarterback related than a lot of other positions, right? So we're gonna talk about what do we have? Like, what do we really think we have? And that feeds the third one, which is what do we need? What do we really think we need, and how do we go about getting it? So I want to do kind of a three-parter centered around the word what. What do we want? What do we have? What do we think we need? So the what do we want question fundamentally is around draft capital, right? There are those who believe, and I don't know why. I wish I knew why, that the draft is devoid of talent. I ask it as a question because I don't get it. I've never understood the idea that drafting at one, okay, you can in theory get the best player. Whether you think it's Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau or whoever you think it is. Maybe you think it's the corner from LSU, Stingley, whoever you think it is. The national media right now on December 19th is telling you there's only two guys. Now, I don't believe that because on December 19th, I don't have enough data, right? And I've done that whole speech is that I form my opinions largely with data. There are people who do it based on what they're told, what their person on their favorite channel tells them, what the person on their favorite radio station tells them. They do not form their own opinions based on doing research and getting data. I'm not mad at those people. I'm just highlighting a difference in how we form opinions. It is difficult for me to have this part of the conversation on December 19th because everything you read will tell you if the Lions don't draft Hutchinson or Thibodeau, they have screwed up. Like beyond those two guys, like there's this huge gap. And I don't believe that. I don't. For two reasons. One, the Lions have a lot of holes. An edge rusher would be great. And there are other edge rushers, by the way. But the idea that, the Lions have to get one of these two edge rushers or the draft's a failure or they've screwed it up, it is not sound logically. It's not sound based on the data. It's this feeling thing because guys listen to the radio and they do their root for radio topics to get you all excited. And one of the guys is local, God forbid, he went to Michigan. Oh yeah, they want to get you heated up. That's what they want to do. Or the guys on the national station, the 4-letter. I don't particularly love that network, but the 4-letter is going to tell you it's Hutchinson or Thibodeau. So now the Lions win. They get their second win, technically 2.5 because the tie counts. And Jacksonville lost. So now the Lions are in the number 2 spot. So you're going to get those people this week and beyond. They screwed up a chance to get Hutchinson. Jacksonville's going to take Hutchinson. They blew it because those people are so sure Aiden Hutchinson is a can't miss superstar, which he might be. Or if they win another game, which I believe they might, I don't know that the Packers will have anything to play for in week 18. I don't know if they can beat Atlanta or Seattle. Seattle's not great, but the game's in Seattle and the day after Christmas, they're in Atlanta. That's more about, I have no idea if they can beat either of those teams on the road. I don't have enough evidence to say they're better, but so I think if the Packers have nothing to play for week 18, we can get a third win. So we could be looking at third or fourth. But think about it. The draft, if you and there's a handful of things I'm really, really smart about. I will tell you the NFL draft is one of them. Right? Anybody who knows me knows how I feel about those 3 days at the end of April. Right? If you think the only thing they need is an edge rusher, so they have to get Hudson or Thibodeau, then we just disagree on this team. And I'm about to get into that. If you don't think they have other needs, great. If you believe there's only 2 good players in the entire draft, then we just don't agree, right? You and I just don't agree. I think both of those guys could be superstars. I guarantee you there's 5 to 7 players in the first round that are going to be really, really good NFL players. I would suggest to you there's another 15 to 20 that'll go anywhere from the end of the first round to the fourth round that are going to be really, really good NFL players. I suggest to you the Lions need a lot. They need a lot. They don't just need an edge rusher. Now, if you're telling me these guys are can't miss on December 19th, we all kind of feel like these 2 guys are can't miss. So I could see how you could emotionally get wrapped up in that and say they've got to get one of these guys or they're screwing it up. I can see how you could come to that conclusion. I just wouldn't agree with you. I would think you're wrong. I will respectfully tell you that you're wrong. Now, with that being said, there is something in winning, and I'm going to use the word culture, even if people don't like it. A guy on Twitter said, "Oh, you winning one game against Minnesota doesn't build a culture." If it doesn't build a culture, I can tell you it helps mitigate what could very quickly and easily turn into a culture of losing. So if you don't believe you're building a winning culture, I would suggest you are absolutely avoiding a losing culture. 2 weeks ago, the celebration in the locker room got a lot of press. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. I was somewhere in the middle. I got it. The hug with Sheila, the game ball, the tears, I got it. And I talked about guys working really hard and feeling good for guys who have worked really hard and gotten to a point where they reached, they saw like something. I don't think you're going to get the same celebration today. I mean, we're an hour and a half afterwards. I didn't look. I don't think you're going to get the same celebration today. I think today was a business meeting. It was a successful business meeting. And in my career, I attend a lot of meetings. Meetings have a purpose. Meetings are important. There are meetings where people need to share information. There are meetings where people need to make decisions, right? But I have had many meetings in my career where I walked out and I said, damn, that's an hour I'm never getting back, right? I'm never getting that hour back. That's sometimes what happens. There have been games like last week, you know why, right? They had a bunch of guys got the flu. That Denver game, that's 3 hours 5 hours I'm never getting back. And that's unfortunate. But for the players today, it was a good meeting. There are meetings where I've left and I thought, okay, that was productive. We are on the right track. We are doing the right things. I feel good about this project or whatever it is. That was the same thing today. Today was a thing where the Pentaveret reference to an obscure movie, the group of really smart people that make decisions in Allen Park, Michigan can sit down and say, today was a productive meeting because we saw a lot. We saw a lot today. We saw Dan Campbell get better as a play caller. We saw glimpses of Jared Goff that still make that question a question. And it's kind of moot because you have another year, right? And maybe the question is, do we draft his replacement to sit behind him for a year? Or do we have the ability to kick that can down the road a year? Yeah, that you saw some of that. You saw that a culture is being built of guys who, no disrespect, are not, the Lions aren't the most talented team in the league before the injuries. Certainly not now. But you saw today a guy named Craig Reynolds, just by every measure, ball out. He did. Now you think about that room. He still got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams in that room. And I don't really want to talk about Godwin Igwebuike because I hate fumbling. I'm not gonna beat the kid. I hate fumbling. Fumbling is just so detrimental, and I don't know what his future holds. But I like Jamar Jefferson. And if you're telling me you bring a running back room back next year that is a healthy DeAndre Swift, a healthy Jamal Williams, Craig Reynolds, and Jamar Jefferson, I like your running back room. Right? So there is a degree of winning if it doesn't breed a culture, like a feeling of we worked really hard and got the result. So let's keep working hard. That's a culture. But if you don't buy that, I will say to you, there is a culture on the other side of that when losing becomes a snowball. And what these wins do is mitigate that. We're just losers. We can't win. So there's a culture versus draft capital conversation there. And wherever you fall on that spectrum, whatever you think the draft holds. I don't know that you can debate that, right? And this ultimately becomes about Brad Holmes utilizing the picks he got in the Stafford deal, the picks they're going to get from where they are, and continue to build talent, to put talent on the roster. The talent on the roster that fits what is clearly Dan Campbell's scheme, Dan Campbell's culture, Dan Campbell's way of running the football team. So you're going to draft an offensive lineman, because you should probably draft an offensive lineman every year. This is not trade Taylor Decker or move V or any of that stuff. V's under contract. You're going to pay him, and he's doing a decent job. You're going to draft defensive linemen. You're going to get bigger, right? But this is an opportunity, these wins, and I don't know that they're, again, good enough to win in Atlanta or in Seattle, but I do believe this team has a third win. But if we're honest, this should be happy. You should be happy. Even if you're way on the spectrum of your guy who's like, lose every game so we can get draft picks, you should be happy, because here's the truth. This is not a 1-11-1 team or a 2-11-1 team. This is a 6-8 team. That's what they are. Because if you're sitting here telling me, I can't argue with you that first Minnesota game should have been a win, Baltimore should have been a win, the Pittsburgh tie should have been a win, Cleveland should have been a win, Chicago should have been a win. Those should have all been wins. This team should probably be 6-8, truthfully. So if I tell you your team that is talent-wise, culture-wise, capability-wise, a 6-8 team, but because fill in the blank, defensive player made a mistake, coach called a horrible game, they're actually 3-13-1, and they get to draft 4th instead of 14. You should actually be happy, because that's what's going to happen. They're going to finish probably 3-13-1. They're going to draft 3rd or 4th in the draft, when they should legitimately be a 7-10 team drafting 12 or 13. So you actually should be happy if you think about it. Again, tanking isn't necessary. I don't know if they're good enough to win the next 2. And I don't think Green Bay is going to play anybody of relevance week 18. So that win's going to be hard to avoid. Not that I want them to. I like the idea that these guys come out every week and try their best. Because when the talent catches up to that culture, that's going to win them games. The culture is going to win them games when the talent catches up. So what do we want? Do we want them to, and it's only 3 games left. My prediction is they'll get one, but what do we want? Do we really want them to lose to move up a pick or 2? Is it that big a deal? 1st or 3rd? You truly believe Hutchinson and Thibodeau are the only 2 good players in the draft? You don't think Stingley could help us? You don't think Karl Loftus, the edge rusher from Purdue, could help us? I think there's more than 2 good players. I think there's more value in not developing a winning culture, although I think there's a little bit of that happening. We work hard. We got to win. That feels good. I think the real nugget is, man, had they been, God forbid, 0-16-1, but even if they had just won 1 game, there would have been a degree of, it doesn't matter what we do, we're just losers. Fans would be saying it. The national media would be saying it. Recognizing that the work they put in all week can pay off, will ultimately be meaningful when the talent catches up. So what I want, I wouldn't mind if they won all 3 games and drafted 6. I wouldn't care, because I believe in Brad Holmes. Ultimately, I think that's what's going to matter. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think both Atlanta and Seattle probably doesn't have anything to play for. I just think it's tough to win on the road in the NFL. Ask Arizona. So, all right, what do we want? Wherever you are on that spectrum, you can figure out what you want. Like, what do we have? What do we have is my second what. I want to talk about the roster, right? And I don't want to, I could jump down a rabbit hole because there's something. So early in the year, we talked about what do we want this to be about? We all agreed they weren't winning the division. They weren't going to the playoffs. It spiraled and was much worse than we thought halfway through. But we consistently talked about a couple things. Development. I talked a lot about development. And other people, guys on the radio, callers and hosts, guys in the national media. There's a development. Dan Campbell's job was to develop a culture. I thought he had a hiccup mid-season when he took over play calling, but it seems we're past it. And so we would run off these players that we thought we want to see them get better, right? People wanted to see Derek Barnes on the field. But let's just go by position group. I'm going to start on the defensive side. When I look at the defensive line, like on the roster now, there's a couple of good, young defensive tackles, Levi Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil. I don't think you've heard bad things. Maybe we haven't heard enough from them. I'm going to question mark both of them. They need more. Like Romeo Okwara is still a young player. Julian Okwara, his brother, is even younger. I think today we saw the emergence of a fifth-year player that they signed under the radar. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't jump on this podcast and say, I love the Charles Harris signing. I didn't. Well, I am now, right? At the end of the day, when you see players getting better, and development to me is, how is this guy playing week 1 or week 2? And you will see flashes of Charles Harris. He's their leading sack guy. Charles Harris played a really good game today. He's only in his 5th year. I don't know if we believe Charles Harris is old. We don't understand that Charles Harris can be with this team for a long time and be a contributor, particularly on the defensive line. I got to be honest. I kind of like Charles Harris. Today he played well. I think McNeil and Onwuzurike have growth to bring us. I think Romeo and Julian are both good players. And to be honest, I think you got to talk about what is Trey Flowers, what are Michael Brockers, right? You still have guys there, and you want on that defensive line a rotation. You want a rotation of a bunch of guys that can play. So I'm not down on the defensive line. I think there's opportunity for guys to get better. I think Julian will get better. I think Onwuzurike will get better. I think McNeil will get better. I like where Charles Harris is. When those guys, and Romeo, when he's healthy, he might be the best player on that line. And I'm not down on Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers just doesn't stay healthy. I don't know if I wouldn't spend the first pick on a defensive lineman. If we end up 1 or 2, you're going to add another name to that, right? Okay, linebackers. This is where I'm struggling. This is where I think we need help. We know we need help. I won't disrespect Alex Anzalone and break down this whole game. I'm going to tell you, I think Derek Barnes has the physical tools to one day be a really good linebacker, but there's work to do. The guy I really want to talk about today, though, and I don't know who wouldn't after his performance today, is Jalen Reeves-Maybin. This guy's been around for a while. He's been on special teams. We didn't know what he could do. I'm sorry, Reeves-Maybin had a really good game today. If you watch the game today against a really good offensive team, we weren't playing some bad team. So I don't hear any of that. I don't want to hear they didn't play well. The Lions defense caused them issues, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin was involved, was all day. If that's who Jalen Reeves-Maybin is, the linebacking core is not as bad as I thought. Now, do I think you need to add? Of course you do. You got to add everywhere. I would even say add on the defensive line. So let me put that right up front. There's no position group I'm about to talk about that I don't think they could use help. I think they could use help in any. That's why my whole argument about the draft and tanking and all that, they need help everywhere. Guys, we're 2-11-1. I'm not on here after a really shocking but happy win saying, okay, we're good to go. We're not. I'm happy because I see young players playing better. I saw Charles Harris, who under the radar signing, didn't cost a ton, probably 27, 28-ish, played really well. Jalen Reeves-Maybin played really well. And I think you need help at linebacker. And I think Barnes will have a bigger role next year. So now the defensive backs is where it's tricky because I gotta eat some crow. I gotta walk it back. I gotta walk it back for Amani Oruwariye because I was hard on him early. I didn't see it. And I was watching national broadcasters go on TV saying he's a leader. He's their best defensive back. And I wasn't seeing it. But I'm going to tell you, I got to walk it back. I'm literally going to apologize to Amani because, and not just today, he's gotten better, which is, again, development. Anybody who watches this team consistently cannot deny week 15 Amani is way better than week 5, week 6 Amani. The guy's gotten better, and he makes plays. He has been making plays. He was under my radar. I wasn't whatever. I think there's probably something in Jerry Jacobs from a depth standpoint. I don't know that he's a starting every down corner in the league. I think he's a guy that when one of your corners goes down, and they do, he can play. I don't think he played today, though. I don't remember seeing him today. I think they lined up Will Harris at corner today. And Walker and Harris, I thought were a good young safety combination that will get better. I'm not super high on Tracy Walker, and I would not cry if they added a safety. In fact, I think they'll add a safety. Then you got the guys that are hurt, right? I don't know where you stand on Akuda. That's up to you. It's that spectrum thing again. If you are a guy who says Akuda is a bum, he was never going to be good, he's done. And I heard a guy say that on the radio. Jeff Okudah will never play a meaningful down in the NFL. I think that's way too early. I don't think there's enough data. Not for me. Now, I'm not saying Jeff Okudah is going to be worthy of the third pick. That's a Bob Quinn pick. We got to question it, right? I think we still don't know. I think if his procedure was successful and he comes back, there was something when that young man played at Ohio State University that had a lot of people thinking he was the best corner in that draft. I don't think that just falls off. Now, if you tell me his injuries will impact his ability, I could buy that. But I will be honest and say I don't have enough data. I don't think any of us have enough data. And I really liked flashes from Melifonwu. I think he will ultimately be good. Do they need a corner? Yes. Could they use a safety? Yes. Right? I like Amani. Now, I think if you tell me you're going to spend a relatively high pick or you're going to spend free agent dollars on corner and you're going to get back a healthy Akuda and Amani continues to grow and you have depth with Melifonwu and Jacobs, I don't hate your cornerback position. I believe you have to add a safety. If you tell me I can only add one, I'm adding a safety. Because maybe Harris can slide over and play corner, right? So on the defensive side of the ball, I think they could add a player at every level. Of all position groups involved, I like the line. I like what the defensive line's bringing. And this is all projection, right? I don't like anything right now. They're 2-11-1. Don't get me wrong. But I'm projecting the 2023 NFC North champion Detroit Lions. That's so irresponsible. I do believe that if Brad Holmes does his job, as well as I believe Brad Holmes is capable of doing his job, the 2023 Detroit Lions will compete for the North title. And yes, I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't play for the Packers anymore, and I'm assuming the Vikings blow it all up. So yes, okay. But I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm not jumping down that rabbit hole. So on the defense side of the ball, I think there are pieces on the line, but you could add, sure. I think you absolutely need help at linebacker, not to disrespect anybody who's there. And there's so many question marks in the defensive backfield that I think you add somebody there, right? Of every position group on this team, my favorite is the offensive line. I've been consistent. When healthy, if they could stay healthy, and that's unreasonable. It's the National Football League. Guys are going to get hurt. So depth is always the case. But I think you've heard names like Nelson, who's played well, and McCollum, who's playing centers, played well. I think you see Brown, some of these depth guys are doing their jobs as depth guys. But your starting offensive line, everybody healthy, that goes from left to right, Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Vaitai, and Penei Sewell at right tackle, that's a really good offensive line. Health not being a question, that's a good offensive line. Now, you had an offensive line today with two of those guys missing, and they were really, really effective. And Dan Campbell has made it clear, if nothing else, he's going to run the football. He's not just going to run the football. He's going to set the tone for the offense by running the football. And I believe that fits Jared Goff's skill set. Jared Goff's best thing is play action. When you're running well, Jared Goff can come off play action. I think the offensive line is solid, but I fundamentally believe you draft an offensive lineman every year, no matter what. Maybe it's the third round. Maybe it's the fourth round. I think you draft an offensive lineman every year. You can never have enough offensive linemen. It's the reality. Now, truth is, Vaitai's contract is hurting us. Bob Quinn signed a horrible 5-year deal for a guy who's playing solid at right guard. Thankfully, I think right about the time Sewell comes up for an extension, V's contract will be done. But the problem is Decker and Ragnow are done. They're good. So if we love Jonah Jackson, he's going to come up at some point. I mean, for a new contract is what I mean by come up. But I think the offensive line is solid. And if you tell me there's one position group we're not going to draft, I'm most comfortable with the offensive line. That's not true. Running back. I'm going to move on to running backs. I love the running back room. I do. I think that And all this projecting and talking about the 2023 NFC North Division champ kind of thing, which I still like doing, even though it's utterly ridiculous. Swift, Williams, Reynolds, Jefferson is a good running back room. That's a good running. DeAndre Swift is a star. When he's healthy, he's a star. I mean, he is. He led the team in receptions. He was leading, I think, the league in receptions by a running back, maybe second to Kamara, but he was right there. Health isn't factoring into any of this. This is just what do we have so that we can baseline sort of. I want to support my contention that they're truthfully a 7-10 team. I want to support my contention that there's hope, there's talent, there's a foundation. And I believe that. I believe there's a foundation. I believe there's talent. It's not enough, right? But I like the running back room. I think Swift's a star. I think Jamal Williams is a great compliment. I think there's something in this Craig Reynolds guy that, two data points is not enough, but it's enough for me to know that his ass can't go back to the practice squad. That guy needs to be on the active roster. Even if given a choice between him and Jefferson, just because of his style, I like his style more. The wide receiver room is the problem. It's the problem. And that's no disrespect because Amon-Ra St. Brown is as good a fourth-round draft pick as I've seen in a while. Healthy TJ Hawkinson is still top 5 tight end in this league, except we haven't used him well. I like what Josh Reynolds brings, and I liked what I was seeing from Quintez Cephas before he got hurt. So again, you see a theme. There's guys injured at every level. Every group I've talked about has a significant injury. So health is the question. But I'm setting all that aside and saying that if you add a big-time receiver via free agency or the draft to this room, you now have it immediately when you have to ask who's your number one between Reynolds and Cephas, that's a problem. But if you add a true number one, and Reynolds is your 2 and Cephas is your 3, and you got Amon-Ra in the slot and Khalif Raymond can play, plus you have a healthy Hawkinson, this is a good receiving room, right? Health not being an issue. Then it leads to the obvious question of the last group, which is quarterback. This is the largest spectrum that we have, right? This is the one that means everything. Where do you sit with Jared Goff? And it's tough because I don't know. I think I literally made a proclamation last week that I was done. And in retrospect, that was 45 minutes after a debacle in Denver, right? Where he, honestly, I still don't know where I am. So I'm going to be honest and say, I still don't know if it's fair to evaluate him right now. And there are people who will. And my brother is somewhere going, he's a bum. He sucks. Even today, Kenny told me Goff sucks. And he played really well today. So I don't know. I have to grant that it's me and how I look at this football team. But at the same time, truly evaluating a player, and I'm not a scout. I've never been a scout. I would love to have been a scout. How do you evaluate him when he doesn't have a true number one? Again, no disrespect to Josh Reynolds or Quintez Cephas or anybody else. Goff has played this entire season without a true one. What a true one gives him is a guy that the safety has to roll to. That creates space for Hawkinson. That creates space for your slot guy. It literally gives Jared Goff more options to go with the football. So one of my chief complaints about him is he checks down a lot. He has to check down because nobody's open. Because there's not a guy that demands double coverage. He doesn't have a Calvin. He doesn't have a Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have a guy who even when he's single covered, he's open. When he's double covered, you still might take a shot. But more than anything, safety has to account for that guy. And that makes the other guys better. He doesn't have that. And my number one concern is his check down. Now, he generally makes one big mistake every game. I call it the Goff mistake. He didn't make it today. He almost made it today. That's the other thing. But I don't know if we've seen the best version of Jared Goff. So then the question fundamentally is, do you think Jared Goff, whatever he is, and we can disagree on that, when this team adds more talent, when this team adds pass rushers and number one receivers and help at corner and linebackers, could he get this team to the playoffs? Could he get this team to a Super Bowl? That kind of stuff. Questions that you shouldn't be talking about when your team's 2-11-1. So I'm gonna remind everybody, I'm projecting the 2023 NFC North champs. Is Jared Goff the quarterback of that team? And the answer is I don't know. But here's the good news. I don't have to know right now. We don't have to know right now. Jared Goff's our quarterback next year. The 2022 team, wherever they finish, whatever they do, the quarterback's Jared Goff. The reason this becomes important is a decision we make this offseason, because I believe that it is smarter to draft his replacement and have that guy back him up. And then if that guy shows you in practice every day that he is ready to become your quarterback in 2023, you have the cap flexibility. Well, not even cap flexibility. The impact of releasing Jared Goff or moving on from Jared Goff is not that painful. You can't, I don't think you can do it this offseason. The dead cap money would hurt too much. And you're really just getting free of Stafford's cap money. So I think Jared Goff's your quarterback next year. I'm still in limbo. I'm going to be honest. So I think that if we look at positions, there's some stuff there. That whole segment was really to say we are not completely devoid of talent. Injuries not being an issue, we are not completely devoid of talent. And we have young talent that could get better. There's no reason Amon-Ra St. Brown can't get better. Penei Sewell will get better for sure. There's no reason to believe that Reynolds won't get better, that Anzarike and McNeil won't get better. There are players on this roster that are going to get better. So now we go to the what do we need? What do we need? I just said it. Need probably everything. Probably everything. So I'm going to play out a scenario. I'm not going to do this the traditional way. We'll probably do that at some point this year. I'm going to play out a little scenario around free agency and the draft. And this is where my head is. I say this. Let's suggest they win another game and they finish with the 4th overall pick. And we're not even going to talk about 3rd round picks, 4th round picks, despite Amon-Ra St. Brown being a really, really solid 4th round pick that's going to help. We're just going to focus on our 1, the Rams 1, and our 2. So in my scenario, we pick 4, we pick 25 for the Rams, and we pick 36 in the 2nd round. In my scenario, because of Stafford's cap money coming off, we have the ability to sign 2 impactful free agents. You could change that to 3 contributing free agents or 4 depth guys, whatever it is. The way the cap money looks to me, they have the ability to sign 2. They could sign 2 impactful free agents. So we're going to work from a scenario of 5 additions, which I would say should be impactful additions. We're adding 5 players to the roster I just went over this offseason. And you can pick where they go, right? But I'm just going to play the game. I'm going to play the game and say that they're going to use free agency to address linebacker, and they're going to address corner or safety. So 2 defensive positions, right? Let's go with that. We could do whatever we want. But then I look at the draft and I go, wait, for all these guys who are telling me they need to lose games because they need the top picks, I looked over 6 mock drafts and just put together a few names right before the podcast. So I won't even name the mock draft. Some reputable, some maybe some dude in his basement. I don't even know. But I'm going to tell you that at 4, like I talked about earlier, let's say you're at 4. All right, if you're devastated that you don't get Hutchinson and Thibodeau, I have seen, like I said, Karlaftis, the edge rusher from Purdue, is by all accounts the 3rd best edge rusher, and I've seen him mocked at 4 and 5, those areas. Like, he's that good. If you don't believe that guy could be that good, I need you to tell me why. Why? Because you just keep hearing people say Hutchinson, Thibodeau, which is no disrespect to them because they're both very good, but because they're both very good, likely can't miss, will likely be really good players, doesn't mean George Karlaftis won't also be a very good player, a player that won't help this team. And you plug him in a rotation that has Romeo and Julian and Brockers and McNeil and Harris and Onzarike. Okay, you have a really nice defensive line rotation. Derek Stingley Jr. is the premier corner in this draft. Now, there are going to be those who grab their heart, like Fred Sanford, coming to see you, Elizabeth, right? Because they took Okudah, the 3rd pick. That's a kind of logic I don't work with. Because 2 years ago you did something and it didn't work, you can't do it now. Is not my. That's radio. That's root for sports talk radio kind of nonsense. Derek Stingley Jr. is a really good player, and if you're telling me you add him with an emerging Amani, potentially a recovering Okudah, and Jacobs and Melifonwu, okay, you have improved your secondary tremendously. You do that, either of those guys makes your defense better, particularly if you get a safety and a linebacker in free agency. So you add a safety, a corner, a linebacker, and an edge rusher. And we're still in the first round of the draft, right? You could do that kind of stuff. You could do those kinds of things, or 3 of those 4. You make your defense better immediately. Let's say you take Karlaftis. You've added an edge rusher, you sign a linebacker, you sign a safety. You're willing to roll the dice with Okudah, Melifonwu, Amani as your starting corners, Jacobs and others backing them up. That's a better defense. That's a better defense. Sure, if you finish 1 or 2, probably take one of those guys, and that's great. That's great. And there's a really good lineman from, I want to say Georgia, but I could be wrong, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. But then you go down to 24. So you got the Rams pick at 24. I'm just going to give you 3 names I've seen mocked at 24. Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. Pickens, the receiver from Georgia, even though he's coming off an injury, he gave Alabama the business. That kid is good. And Jahan Dotson from Penn State, who, no matter which school in Michigan you root for, you saw that kid. That's 3 receivers mocked around 24, 25. Does that make your receiver room better? If you had Chris Olave to Quintez Cephas, Josh Reynolds, and Amara St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, and Hawkinson, yep. Let's say you take the edge rusher at 4 and you add free agencies. You had 4 players on the defensive side, and then at 24, you draft a receiver. Any of them. I actually like Pickens quite a bit. Actually, Pickens is big, and he brings something that I mean, Olave is really, really good, though. Don't get me wrong. So is Dotson. But those guys are the kind of guys sitting there at 24. Now, for those of you who say, wait, what if Pickens is still there? What if somehow Matt Corral drops down? I'm not mad if you draft your future quarterback at 24. If you scout him and you think he's the one, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. But you also get a pick in my scenario at 36. And if you haven't, let's say you take Stingley at corner at 4. There's a kid named Logan Hall from Houston. I saw him in 4 of the 6 mock drafts on the board at 36. If you haven't drafted your receiver, Justin Ross, 6'4", 210, catches everything. He's on the board in most of the mocks around 36. And, oh, by the way, there's a quarterback from Nevada named Carson Strong that's on the board at 36 in every single one of them. So you can, if you think that's what he is, he's mocked there. You can draft him. Let him sit on the bench and develop. What you can do with these 5 assets, 5 pieces of capital, what I'm saying, and the whole point of today was, what do you want? Then what do you have? What you have informs what you need. So let's say a scenario, and my scenario is kind of worst case. They could still draft 1 or 2. This whole thing could start with Hutchinson or Thibodeau. Pickett or Corral could drop down. Who knows, right? So there's all this. The kid out of Western Kentucky, Zappy, I liked it. I don't know where he's mocked. I don't know where he's going. Something about this Zappy, this quarterback from Western Kentucky. I saw him in the Michigan State game, and I watched his bowl game the other day. I like him. The point of all that is the culture is important to the what do we want question. I like that they're building a culture. The what do we have question is better than I think we think it is. I think it's better than I think we think it is. And then what do we need? The good news is we can get it. We have the ability to get it. So today was like me trying to put together this positivity scenario about where they're going, because I'm trying to build the 2023 NFC North champs. And I think just those 5. I didn't talk about 3rd round picks, trades, multiple free agent signings. 2 free agents, 3 draft picks. You add 5 impactful players to your team. A team that has a foundation of young players that appear to be getting better, a head coach that appears to be getting better. I'm not talking about his job because he's not going anywhere. It can be there. And this was a straight cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. The game put me in a mood because they played their most complete game all year. I decided to look at the team holistically from a higher view, think about what we want, Really look at the roster and think about what we have, and then understand we have the mechanism to get it. They have the mechanism to make a major step change next year and be a really good team, because I contend they're better than they look now, and they're going to add minimum 5 good pieces to this team. Or you're going to lose some guys, but I think you can make that up. Question's still Jared Goff. Biggest question is Jared Goff and injuries. We got to keep guys healthy, and we need our quarterback to let us know what he is. But all in all, I think it's today was good. My answer is today was good. If you think it was bad because of draft, that's cool. I think it was good. I think it was good to see it's a good feeling to watch them play a complete game. I contend it's the first complete game they played all year. They played a complete half against Green Bay. They played a couple complete stretches earlier. Today was good. For me, as a cornbread fan, today was good. And I think that they have the potential to win another game. In theory, they could win 2. I'm not worried about that. I don't care about that. I think they're going to be fine. The 2023 NFC North champs are on the way. The train's moving. I got space. I'm driving. No, you can't drive, Kenny. I'm driving. I got space for everybody. Art, you got a spot. Chuck, you got a spot. Anybody who wants a spot, let me know. We're 2023 North champs. I'm on it. I'm on it. So I hope y'all enjoyed the podcast today. It felt good. Nice win for the boys. If you got some thoughts or anything, at Cornbread Pod's the best way. You can send emails. I don't check it though. So the Twitter at Cornbread Pod is the best way. Again, always shouting out the super producer extraordinaire, Mike Ward. I hope y'all had a good day and enjoyed it. I did. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.